Liberty Preparatory Academy is a Springfield Public Schools high school with a very specific mission. There are two major factors that make Liberty Prep, as it is called for short, so distinct. First of all, the school is regional in its reach, meaning high school students who live outside of Springfield are eligible for enrollment. And secondly, and most importantly, the school's curriculum, programming, and counseling services are all geared towards supporting students recovering from substance abuse issues. In this segment of Springfield Public Schools Spotlight, we will talk with the assistant principal and a counselor at Liberty Prep to learn more about the unique education model at the school. And stay tuned because we will also provide information about how families, agencies, or teens themselves can talk with a counselor at the school about enrollment or simply learn more. Jen McQuaid is the assistant principal at Liberty Prep. She's been there for 4 years. And I want to say thank you, Jen, for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Can you talk a little bit about the students who enroll in Liberty Prep?
Sure. Our students are from Springfield and surrounding towns. It's a voluntary placement that families, students, community agencies can refer students who are in need of some substance abuse support, in addition to some academic, many of the students have academic loss. So we work with them on getting caught up academically while we continue to support them during the recovery.
So can you walk us through a typical day for a student at Liberty Prep?
Sure. So the morning at Liberty Prep, we gather in the morning as a group, as a school, and have a morning meeting. And then the kids start their academic classes, which run until about 11:15. Every day at 11:15 to 12, they have a recovery support group, which Paul, who you'll meet later, runs that group with our school adjustment counselor as well. And they work on any daily issues, social emotional issues, substance abuse issues. It's just a really supportive setting that we have every day embedded into our programming. And then in the afternoon, after lunch, the students have enrichment classes. So it's either gym, art, music. We often have speakers from the community come in during an advisory too with Paul, and a lot of community members who are active in the recovery community around this area.
So when you talk about the academic classes, are they any different from what a student might experience in a more traditional district high school?
So the requirements are all the same as any Springfield Public School high school. We follow all the curriculum. The differences are small class size. There are no more than 10 students ever in a classroom with a teacher, except for in the group, maybe with Paul, if we had a larger number of students, but it's very small, student-centered, and the students get a lot of academic support all day, throughout every day, not just, like intervention services or pull out once a week. It's all day embedded into our academic programming.
So the students are receiving the same number of credits per classes and getting the same rigor that they would be getting in any other high school program in the district.
They are. The unique thing about Liberty Prep is that because we are a regional school, we work with a lot of districts throughout Massachusetts, and the students and the families and the districts get to choose if the students are going to graduate with a Springfield Public Schools diploma, or they can still graduate with their school's diploma. So we work very closely with the sending districts to make sure that all the credits are aligned with their requirements for graduation if they choose not to get a Springfield Public Schools diploma.
I see. Thank you. So now let's turn to what makes Liberty Prep so special, which is the counseling and the support services provided to students who are in recovery from substance abuse. Can you tell us, Jen, a little bit about that programming?
About the recovery programming?
Yes.
Sure. So Paul has been with, you'll meet him later, but he has been with Liberty Prep much longer than I have, about 14 years. And so each student works with him individually and in a group setting. They all have a recovery relapse plan that includes how they're going to stay sober now and their plans for after they leave Liberty Prep and beyond. So, it's a lot of planning. Part of recovery is sometimes relapsing. So we have relapse prevention plans in place. We offer parent support groups for parents who are trying to cope with all of the stress and real life challenges that come with having a child who's addicted or struggling with addiction. So I think the supportive counseling and resources that we have in Liberty Prep are very helpful to both the students and the families.
Excellent. Well, let's turn to Paul himself to talk a little bit more in depth about the counseling services there. As Jen told us, Paul is a certified recovery and addiction counselor at Liberty Prep, and he's been there for 14 years. So thank you for taking time out to join us today, Mr. Collins.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Can you tell us from your perspective as a counselor a little bit about the counseling structure?
There's an initial process where they are screened, wand, to make sure there are no things harmful to themselves or others. The structure, I have an open door policy, and the teachers know that should a student want to come upstairs, they're more than welcome. There have been students who will come up every morning. I'm not sure if that's about cutting class or if it's about looking at my old wrinkled face. The methodology that I use is motivational counseling. I'm often at the initial meetings for students who are coming into Liberty Prep. Jen will often invite me over, which I appreciate. So, and it's one of the few times that I get to meet the parents, which is also for myself telling at various times. Our groups are, I encourage students not to minimize what another student might be saying and not to attempt to interpret the meaning of that conversation, but to try and be there with their heart. Which I think I read that somewhere in your write-up about heart centering. I think that is the best thing that we can do with students, is to let our thoughts be heart-centered with them.
Now, I know that I imagine that it must be very important to have a connection with the students.
They were damaged before they got to us, not just in home, but also out of home. And I think some of the damage has also arose from within the Springfield and other school districts. And having said that, I think what we are very good at doing is treating each student as an individual and not looking at them as though they walked in on crutches, but they are quite able and have the abilities to be successful. And I think we all have an enormous amount of patience and love and kindness for the students that we work with.
That must be key. I think that even when a recovering student is on the right track, there may be times when they are really struggling with just the pressures of life, of school, staying sober. How do you help them through those hard times?
With great patience. And I think Jen leads the way with her patience and love. And I think it's a great model for all of us I've said this to Jen before, but she is, in my opinion, the best building manager, the best assistant principal that I've worked with at Liberty Prep.
Thanks,
High,
Paul.
high praise from someone who's been there well over a decade, Jen.
I'm
Azelle, I'd like to add something. We talked about how we like build relationships with the kids, and I think we're really completely student-centered here at Liberty Prep. So when a student comes in, everybody's an individual. They have their own plans, their own goals, their own fears, and their own trauma that got them here. So we work with each kid one by one. As Paul said, we have to have a lot of patience, and so do they with us and the other students in the class. And they're a group of students who are struggling in their own way with emotional issues. And on top of that, they may have some academic stuff. So each student has Paul as a recovery counselor, an academic counselor, and then the staff, who really are a great team, work wonderful together. And it's all related to support each student in their goals.
Thanks. And my final question is for both or either of you. There may be some families out there who could really benefit from a program like this for their high school student. But as you know, unfortunately, there's a stigma that surrounds recovery and addiction, which is really unfortunate, especially now with the opioid epidemic the way that it is across the nation. What message do you have for anyone, whether it's a parent, whether it's a student themselves, who may be hesitant to seek help for themselves or for their loved one because of these feelings of shame?
I would, as a parent myself, I think you always want what's best for your child. And there are some students who are struggling with addiction. They need more than what a typical high school environment will offer them. We see a lot of kids who may come to us and then they leave us successfully to go back into the community, and without the right supports, they're right back to where they were before. So addiction is a lifelong illness. And when they say one day at a time, it's true. And for these young adults, 14, 15, 16, who are already suffering from substance abuse, it's a real lifelong issue. So the more that parents can be supportive, and I guess the stigma, I understand why. But I think as a parent, you want to be able to provide your child with whatever they need to be successful. And sometimes just being in a regular setting with counseling isn't enough for some students. So I would say, call us, give us a try, come and visit when you can come into the building to visit, but to reach out to one of us so that we can talk to you and provide you with some information. You're not alone. There's 5 recovery high schools in the state of Massachusetts, and there are children attending all of them from all backgrounds, all socioeconomic backgrounds, diverse backgrounds. It's addiction is not discriminatory. It affects everyone. So I don't know if Paul has anything else to say.
If it's all right, do you pronounce your name Azelle?
Azelle, yes.
Azelle, I'd like to back up with your previous question, which asks a question about what do you do even if a student looks like they're on the right track? There may be times when they are really struggling. I think the students that we work with are always struggling. That we are lucky when they walk in there and they're having a good day. They have come from mess or messes. And these may have happened long before they entered into school. I believe that as a parent with 7 kids, that everything I say in the house, my children hear. And I believe that our children, the children that Jen and I and others work with, are struggling probably every minute of their lives. And it is, I think, for the grace of God that they just don't go crazy.
Hmm.
I think regarding parents, there was a time when I would go to parents' houses and I would meet them in their settings. And I think for many parents, they don't come into school because of their own challenges with school and their own not so great experiences. I think that for kids, in particular kids of color going into recovery, is a daunting task, with an understanding that who they see there most times, or a high percentage, won't look like them and won't sound like people from their communities, and also that their housemates, the other clients, most of them won't look like them as well. And I think that the stigma is greater in Black and brown communities than in white communities, because their parents have their own histories with regard to going in for counseling or seeking some other help from professionals whose job it is to make children well. So I think there is an innate fear within the Black and brown communities. And I think some of that might even be traditionals, where in those communities, people would solve their problems within the community. It would not go outside the communities. It would be solved within the house and the wider communities. And that is disintegrated over the years. So I don't know if that.
That's great. Yes.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Yeah, thank you for articulating those really important pieces of the puzzle. And just, thank you both for the work that you do and for taking time out to be with us here today. We just wanted to take an opportunity to share with the community in the region the resource that is here in Liberty Prep Academy. And if anyone is interested in learning more about the application process, or like Jen said, would like to schedule a visit once schools are open again to that sort of a thing, please call 413-750-2485. Is that the right number?
2484.
Okay, please call 750-2484 or visit the school's webpage, which is on the Springfield Public Schools website at www.springfieldpublicschools.com. Again, my name is Azel Kavan. This has been an episode of SPS Spotlight. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned a lot about Liberty Preparatory Academy.